Hey everyone, welcome to All Techies. I'm Pankaj Rai, and in this video, I'm going to show you how you can add navigation component to your Android application. Well, navigation component is part of Android Jetpack, which gives you an ability to have single activity and all fragment architecture, where activity will just be used to host these fragments and all navigation, popback stack, everything is very well maintained by the navigation component. So let's see how we can do this and what are the components that it is having. So first switch to Gradle and add the dependency for the navigation component. So here is the dependency for the navigation component, and also if you want to pass argument, because it's one of the common use case where you might want to pass some data from one screen to other screen. So during those scenarios you need to pass it as an argument. So for that, do not forget to add the safe args, which gives you an ability to pass the arguments in a type safe manner. We'll see what it means. Also add the class path for the safe arg. Now let's see what we are doing in this main activity. So no code is specified here, and if you see the layout file, then I just have a single fragment in this with width and height as match parent, name as nav host fragment, default nav host as specified as true, and we also have the nav graph. So why do we need this actually? We need this because we are specifying this that this particular fragment is our nav host fragment. That means the navigation host fragment. And what it's going to do is that it's going to use the nav controller to navigate between the start and the destination fragment. So your fragment, whatever which you're specifying, will get replaced here using the nav controller. And how do nav controller understand about this, that this is the start or this is the end destination? So for that we need to create the navigation graph, and that navigation graph is something which you have specified here at the rate navigation slash nav sam graph. That's something which you have to specify in the nav graph. You can give any name for your navigation graph. It's just one of the ways of specifying the graph of the fragments. So let's see about this navigation graph. Now from this place, what you can do is that you can click on this plus, which is new destination, and here you'll see list of all the fragments which you are having in your application. So that's something which you have to specify here. So first create the fragments and then later on create the graph. So you can just click on any of them and it will show all of them at this place. So this is the editor. Through that you can specify the navigation direction, the graph, which should navigate to which other fragment. For example, if you could see, I have one fragment, it's navigating to 2, and then this is navigating to fragment number 3. Finally we also have 5 and 4. One thing which you could see here is that it's not like you can have only one destination. You can have multiple destinations. For example, if you could see here, then we have fragment 1. For navigation, what you need to do is that just click on this and drag and drop the pointer to this. That's it. By this way it will create a link. So now I have this one fragment which is navigating to fragment 2. From fragment 2 we can either navigate to fragment 3 or fragment 4. Then from fragment 4 we can again navigate to fragment 5. This 5 is having destination as fragment 3. Finally from 3 again back to 1. So now when you select any of the action, you see something like this. ID is something which you can change here, and it also gives you the destination or the animations, whatever you want to have it. You can specify all of them here. Also, when you are navigating, if you also want to add the pop behavior, then you can specify here. For example, if you could see here, then while navigating from 3 to 1, I'm not just specifying the ID and the destination here, but also pop up to. And I'm saying it nav graph. That means right from the beginning. Do not have anything in the backstack, but just the fragment which I have launched, which means the one fragments. So what it's going to do is that it's going to go from this place to 2, then 2 to 3, 3 to 4, then 5. Finally, when we go from 3 to 1, now if I hit the device back button, it's going to exit from there because I've specified pop up to nav graph. If you want to pop up to certain fragment, then you can also specify that here. So if you don't want to clear all the backstack entries, but up to a certain fragment, then you can select that fragment here. Now let's see how we can pass arguments. So this was all about doing navigation, and also from the fragment, how can we navigate to the destination? Because currently we have just specified the graph for the navigation, but this is not going to navigate to different fragment. And the reason is very straightforward. As I've shown here in the fragment 2, it can navigate to either 3 or 4 fragment. Now if based on this graph, if we give this capability to automatically navigate between the fragments, then how do it will understand either navigate to 3 or 4? So that's why we need to use the nav controller. And nav controller is the one through that we are going to navigate between the fragments. One advantage that you get with nav controller is that now because you have specified like from fragment you can either go to 3 and 4. So nav controller gives you this ability to you can either go to 3 or 4 but not to any other fragments. So it's not a case where you could by mistakenly call another fragment and then later on understand that no, you need to call different fragment. Okay, so let's see how we can do the navigation. So let me open the fragment 1, and now you can see here that I'm using the nav controller and calling navigate method. So there are two ways which are most common ways for navigation. One is direction, another one is through ID. So this one is through direction. Now when to use any of them, either direction or the ID. So if you want to pass arguments, then you should use direction. And if you do not want to pass arguments, then you can directly specify ID here. Also, while creating the navigation graph, you have to specify the arguments also. Say for example, from fragment 1 to 2, if I want to pass any set of arguments, then I have to specify in arguments, and this is for the destination. There is no need to have arguments for the first fragment because that's the launch fragment. Now for fragment 2, I need 2 arguments coming from fragment 1. So here I have to specify 2 arguments. Now let's see how we can pass this from fragment 1. So as I said, if you have certain arguments, then you have to use the direction. So fragment 1 direction, how do we got this? So that's something which is auto-generated based on the label of the fragment. And that label is nothing but you can see here. So every fragment is having a label. ID is something which you can change, label is also that you can change. So whatever label which you're going to specify here, you'll see the auto-generated direction file for that. So I have fragment 1 direction, and on that I just need to call this action 1 to 2 fragment. Because in the graph I specified that it can only go from 1 to 2 fragment, then it's not going to give me any other method. It's the only method available inside this fragment 1 direction. So how do we are passing arguments? So if you could see, it takes name, say let me give name as XYZ, and another parameter was for the age. So let me give age as as 100. So that's it. So by this way, I can pass arguments between the fragments. Now just have the navhost fragment, find nav controller, pass the context of this fragment, and call navigate method. So on a button click, I'm navigating from this fragment to fragment 2. Now let's see how we can get these arguments. So on a fragment 2, to get the arguments, again based on the label, you'll get auto generated class, and you can just say by nav args, one of the way of using Kotlin delegates. Now through this args, you can get the value of name and age, and that's where I say args gives you a type safe way of getting the values. So no more having constants, write in terms of constants or create string then give value. Here you get as if it's an object. So no more such error where while giving the value you might have written something as a constant, while extracting again go back and check out the constant because both have to be same as key cannot change. But here nothing like that. You have args, and whatever value which you have specified in the previous fragment to the start fragment, the same you're going to see here also. So from this fragment, if you are passing argument to any other fragment, then that fragment is going to get different set of values, not just this name and age. So by this way, it gives you the 100% type safety. Now this fragment, if you could see in the nav graph, then from here you can either go to fragment number 4 or fragment number 3. So here, as you could see, nav host, find nav controller, again this context, navigate. So if you want to pass direction here rather than passing the ID, then what you could do is that you could specify, say like 2 to 3 direction, and the name of this fragment, nothing but the label of this fragment, label 2 directions dot. Now because as per the graph it can navigate to 2 fragments, so that's what you're seeing here. You could either specify action 2 fragment to 3 fragment, or the another one is action 2 to 4 fragment. Then finally you can pass this instead of ID. So anything is okay. If you want to pass in this fashion, you can do like that, or if you do not have any set of arguments, just want to navigate, then even ID is sufficient. So that's it. Now for fragment 3 also same is repeated. Nav controller, navigate, specify the ID. But one advantage that you get there is with direction is that you cannot give a wrong direction to it. Like based on navigation graph, if you specify that from fragment 1 it can only go to fragment 2, then based on direction it's only going to give you a method for fragment 2 but not for any other fragment. But in case you are specifying ID, then you need to take care of this, that based on your graph, if it is only going till fragment 2, then you have to specify the ID for that, but not for any other fragment. So whatever which you are seeing here, r.id.action, so that's nothing but the action ID. Now as you are specifying the action ID, so you get the list of all action IDs. So you need to cross check with your navigation graph to see that from this fragment you can navigate to which other fragment. If it is not matching, then you are going to get the runtime crash. So direction gives you that capability where you'll not end up with this kind of error, because as you have seen with fragment 1, this can only navigate to fragment 2, so it's not going to give me any other method. Rather it's just going to give me from fragment 1 to fragment 2 based on the action ID. So by this way you get one sort of, say, precaution that you will not end up with any runtime crash. So if you see the navigation graph, then we have fragment 1, clicking on next takes to fragment 2 with the default argument value. From here it can either go to 3 or 4, So navigate to next is going to take me to 3, and now from 3 it's going to take me to 1. So here if I click back button, now it's not going to show me the fragment 3 because I've given the pop up to there. Another one is from 1 to 2, and from 2 let's navigate to fragment 4. So from this 4 again we can navigate to 5, and from 5 it's going to take me to fragment number 3. So from 3 again back to 1. But if I hit back button, as it's automatically maintaining the stack for me, then from here it will go to fragment number 5. Here it is. Again from 5 back to 4. From 4 again back to fragment number 2. And from 2 again back to 1. And finally we'll exit the app. So that's it in this video. If you like this video, then do not forget to hit the like button and also subscribe this channel to get the latest videos on Android, Kotlin and Firebase. Thank you and stay tuned.